Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to ChasingCinema.com's official podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. That way, each week on your iTunes, our podcast is automatically downloaded every Sunday to your iTunes. It'll go straight to your iPod, your iPad, your iPhone, your Android, whatever phone it may be. It is available. Or you can always find it on YouTube, ChasingCinema.com, or youtube.com/chasingcinema. If you're a first time tuning in to this podcast, I thank you. But let me introduce myself. My name is Jacob Toronto, and I am joined by my loyal, faithful co-host / best friend,
Louis Corazolo.
And we like to talk about the world of motion picture. Today's podcast is going to be a little bit different than usual. So if it is your first time listening, this is not the normal format, because today I'm going to quickly talk about the enormous release of 50 Shades of Grey. And then me and Louis are going to immediately hop into our 2015 Oscar predictions. So again, next week, a week from today, the Oscars will be on ABC at 4 p.m. And that is a huge deal for us. Me and Louis, each year we do a prediction, and then we see who was closest for the last 2 years of Chasing Cinema's life. Louis has been holding the championship. I believe 2 years ago, in our first year, he beat me by 2 or 3, and I believe last year it was only by 1, or it might be vice versa. But I know it's been pretty close in the past. So he is looking at me like a little bit confused.
I would like to question that. I don't remember exactly the score, but I remember 1 year I only missed 1.
Yeah, but I'm saying I missed one.
Lies. You got all messed up with picking. I forgot what random.
My problem is
last year with the animation.
Yeah, sometimes my problem is I vote with my heart, not with my head. So what me and Louis will do is me and Louis are going to go through the majority of each category. Well, we'll go through every category, but in the bigger categories, me and Louis are going to talk about who we would like to see win and who we think will win, because there in most cases will probably be two different situations. However, Louis and I will not go in depth of our thoughts on most of the films or cinematography or acting, because after next week, after we talk about the Oscar coverage and we go over the Oscars, we conclude the 2014 year by doing the Chasing Cinema Choice Awards, where Louis and I create our own rewards. We do our own categories, and we choose, and we kind of, instead of doing a top 10 where we just read off our list, we will share to you who we think deserves what category. We have some really cool categories like who has the best chemistry, the biggest showdowns, best trailer, and a few other categories that we might be introducing this year. But anyway, make sure to keep in tune for that. It is quite fun. But Louis, I don't know if you've noticed, because I don't think a lot of people have, but this week a movie came out that did some damage. And when I say damage, I mean money, cash flow money. A movie that I believe in the 15 years of Fandango's online reign had the fastest selling R-rated film since Sex and the City 2. And that is 50 Shades of Grey, the novel that was released a couple years ago by author E.L. James, that kind of took the world by storm. It was dubbed mommy porn for a while because, surprisingly, to quickly get a little bit off topic, I watched this YouTube channel. I don't remember the channel's name, but I know they do this really cool interactive thing where they do elders react to or children react to. And they had a bunch of elders react to the 50 Shades of Grey trailer. And they read some excerpts of the book. And these elders are obviously a lot older, and they seem to they made sure they picked people a little bit out of touch with society, what's going on as far as media and like entertainment. So they asked, who's buying this book, and most of their demographic was wrong, thinking males or, young women, when actually the most demographic for 50 Shades of Grey are adult women, probably going from like 24 to 50 age range. So that is why it was dubbed mommy porn. The series itself, it's a trilogy. It's 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades Darker, and 50 Shades Freed. Went on to sell over 100 million copies. So we all know that's pretty nuts. Louis, I know you've not read the novel, unless it'd be news to me. I know you did not see the movie. So tell me, what is your... And I don't know if you were like me, where like I really didn't know much about the story until I went and saw the movie. What is your understanding and thought process of 50 Shades of Grey?
That's a difficult question. my understanding of 50 Shades of Grey, granted, I have not read the book, but I know a lot of people who were interested in reading the book or who have picked up the book, read it, or at least skimmed through the pages. I know my sister had a lot of friends at her work who was big fanatics of the book. They let her borrow it. She read a few pages, a few chapters here and there, did not finish it. But I know there's a big fan base, a big following of this book. It's almost like a Twilight for adults, if you will, more raunchy. The only association I have with it is very personal, is because on YouTube, I don't know on what channel, but if you type in Gilbert Gottfried, 50 Shades of Grey, there is like a 2-minute video of him reading excerpts from the book in his trademark voice, and it's amazing. So that's all I have with 50 Shades of Grey. Granted, I probably could give you my brief summary of it. I think we're at this age that we're even if we hear people reviews of it, see trailers of it, we know what's going on. But when I think of 50 Shades of Grey, I just think of Gilbert Gottfried's voice and reading all those raunchy lines.
Which is funny because it seems like most people that I spoke with that read the book always had a disclaimer. Like, oh, the book is terribly written, but it wasn't terrible, or the book's horrible. Like, I heard that from so many people in the review, in the screening, that like, oh, I read the book, but it was written terribly. But it's just one of those things where, but I've never picked up the book like Louis. I've only heard skits or YouTube videos where they read excerpts. Also in that YouTube channel, that video I was talking about earlier, where Elders react to 50 Shades of Grey trailer. Where they're reading actual lines of dialogue. I never really picked up the book and looked into it myself, so I'm not going to knock the book. However, this is important because already the movie came out on Friday, and I've already had this conversation a few times. My job has nothing to do with the book. I say this most of the time because, especially with big books like this or Hunger Games or Twilight, people take offense when I will knock something, and their response is, that's not how it was in the book. But that doesn't make me wrong, because I've never read the book, A, and B, I'm not judging the book, I'm judging the film. So if it was in the book, it doesn't matter because it's not in that film, and if it's not in that film, then it doesn't exist for me. So that's my quick disclaimer. I did read a bunch of articles about how people are upset that they left so much out of the novel, or so much out of the film, I'm sorry, and that there was important scenes that were changed. Again, I don't know if the scenes that I read about would have changed my opinion that much about how I felt about the film. But, even if it did, unfortunately, it wasn't in the film, so I can't make that kind of call. So let's hop right into it. Louis, if you want to ask me any questions, please feel free.
Okay.
So I love it. I do love it when a huge movie like this comes out and theaters are packed and there's a bunch of screenings. This is the third widest R-rated film release ever. I love that. I love when movies get a huge explosion and people are all in the theaters. So I wasn't necessarily going into this film like, damn, I can't believe I have to go watch this. I know a lot of people who did go to the film with their girlfriends or whatever it may be, did seem to kind of had that, oh, damn, feeling. But an interesting quick story, in the screening, we were joined by a professional UFC fighter, a guest, which was really cool. He was with his lady. He goes by the name of Frank Mir. If those are not familiar with Frank Mir, he is, I believe, at least something to do with, I don't know if he lives here. I believe he does live here, doesn't he? I believe he lives here, or his father lives here. I know there's some sort of connection to Las Vegas. Yeah. Those who don't know the name, particularly, you could go to UFC 100, and he had a major feud with the former WWE superstar Brock Lesnar when he transferred over to UFC. They had a great fight at UFC 100, but they were very, very serious feud. I went over and shook his hand. He said the movie was pretty good. It was okay. Very nice guy. But moving on. So the film was directed by Sam Taylor Johnson, who is relatively new to the directing game. So this is a pretty big, franchise, hopefully, if they keep her around for 2 and 3, because we know there's going to be 2 or 3, if they don't split the third book into 2, more films. Film stars Dakota Johnson, who I'm not really familiar with, other than the fact that I know she's the daughter of Don Johnson, and Melanie Griffith. So she's getting her first leading role. We also have Jamie Dornan, who's playing Christian Grey. I don't even know where he came from. James told me he was a model at one point. I'm not familiar with him. But nonetheless, I think that was the best way for them to go. So, I'm just keep spewing out facts before I actually give my review for the film. I went into this movie expecting a much different film. I did not hate it. I did not love it. I did not like it. I was more the fact where if this movie didn't have the hype around it, let's say if no one heard of the book, 50 Shades of Grey, and the movie came out, this movie would have been easily just shuffled in the shelves and easily forgettable because this movie really didn't offer anything too powerful or too different. I mean, let's face it, sex sells. That's the reason why these novels are famous. No one, I mean, I'm sure if you're a big enough fan, you start caring about the characters. But the reason people know that term is because it, quote unquote, sex, shocking sex, also known as BDSM, as the book kind of delves into. As far as sex in the movie, it was nothing shocking. So if you're someone who's saying, a little bit more of a reserved person and doesn't want to go see this film because you're afraid it's going to be too shocking or too sexual, I would argue it's really not. I would say that if you include ropes around her hand in an average sex scene that you would find in a rated R movie that shows, nothing too crazy, it's not much different than your normal average sex scene. I mean, yes, sometimes she's blindfolded, sometimes he has a little thing to hit her with, but they don't really show him. They show his buttocks. They just show her chest. They're never too aggressive by showing her other private parts.
Yeah, there's no full frontal nudity.
No. Like you kind of see where her beginning, but you don't ever really see her. Like honestly, yeah. I think this is more of the, like, you could find a film that shows far more and is far more aggressive than this film. So it's not nearly as shocking as I expected the film to really be shocking. Like I said, I mean, from what I heard from these excerpts, that they're a lot graphic, and this movie really isn't. So. Now, my positive part about the film is it was a lot funnier than I expected. I laughed in this movie way more than I expected. Most people say, why were you laughing at the material? No, the movie was smart enough to keep playing with its audience and kind of playing with itself. No pun intended.
That was like the worst pun.
I don't even mean to make it puns, but like I noticed in my video review, I say a few things that are punny, and I don't really mean to say that. Sorry. Because they know everyone in that theater is waiting for them to have sex. Mm-hmm. Everyone is just waiting for the first sex scene. Everyone. I mean, when you're doing a movie and you release and you're giving out blindfolds with 50, that's all people are there. They want to see them have sex. So the movie actually takes about 45 minutes to an hour, I would say, for the first time they actually have a sexual encounter. But before that, the movie plays a lot of jokes on itself and kind of the mood of the tone. Everyone is kind of like, oh, when they're going to, they're kind of antsy. And the movie's smart enough to play with that because it doesn't take itself too seriously. At first, I thought that was a good thing. However, when the movie gets a little bit more serious in the second to third act, it's harder for me as a viewer to still take the movie seriously. So when I'm joking and laughing and they're kind of making cute jokes and funny things that kind of take the seriousness out of it, which I think works for the first half of the movie, but in the second, when Christian gets serious and Anastasia gets serious, it's harder for me to buy it. So I think even though it worked for me in the beginning and it made me laugh and made me even enjoy the film, I'd say to a degree, it eventually ends up hurting the movie. For instance, there's an incredible scene, incredible, hilarious scene where, I don't know, again, I don't consider this a spoiler, but Christian Grey says he won't touch her without written consent. Meaning, in order for them to have sex, she has to sign a contract. So there's a scene where the two are going to have a quote-unquote business meeting, and they have to negotiate this contract. It's pretty funny. It's pretty out there. It's the audacity of it's hilarious. And it just kind of works. However, again, when the movie gets serious and everyone gets a little bit more tense and he gets angry and she gets angry, it's harder to buy. My biggest problems with the film are this. Here's what killed the movie for me. Number one, the formula. After they have sex the first time, the movie totally loses my interest because it goes in the same formula repetitively for the remainder of the movie. They have sex, Anastasia Steele says, I want more from you. I don't want to just be this sex slave. Why can't we sleep together? Meaning next to, because it's one rule he doesn't do. I'll talk about more of that later. Why can't we just be more? He responds with the exact same line the majority of the time. I mentioned it in the review. It's just who I am. And then guess what happens? They have sex. And then after they have sex, she says, I want more. Why won't you let me in? And he responds, it's just who I am. And then guess what happens? They have sex and she says, I want more. And he says, it's just who I am. And so on and so forth. And it got so annoying towards the end of the film that it honestly just became exactly that. It became annoying. And I was honestly getting upset. And, I had this conversation as well. They say, Jake, aren't movies regularly formulaic? Isn't there a formula to most films? Yes, but if I'm conscious enough of watching it and I'm counting it and in my head that's all I'm thinking about, I'm not interested in what's going on in the moment. I'm not interested in what's happening on screen. I'm so annoyed by the fact that you're so repetitive that it's blatantly in my face that I can't ignore it. That's when I say something's formulaic. Every romantic comedy is formulaic, but I won't call it that if I'm interested in watching what's going on. Same thing with being predictable. Every movie is essentially predictable, but if I'm interested, I'm not worried about what's happening next. I'm worried about what's in the moment. The second, and I think the most tragic thing that happens to the story, Louis, really quick, tell me what you think the relationship dynamic is between Anastasia Steele and Christian Grey. Just guess.
Well, if I can assume, I know she's a college graduate, recently college graduate.
A young, innocent virgin college graduate.
Okay, excuse me. A young, innocent virgin college graduate who's looking for a job. And she does get a job right out of college, which people are on the internet saying that's like the most unrealistic thing about 50 Shades of Grey, because it made finding a job and getting a job so much easier than it is in real life. She gets a job, and I think she works for Christian Grey, correct?
No,
but same firm?
So it's not necessarily a job. She goes to interview Christian Grey. She goes to interview Christian Grey for her roommate, and he offers her an internship. And I don't know if that ever actually even happens, because they never reference it again. But her working, to me, wasn't even a major part of the story. Mm-hmm. So... Go on. I'm sorry.
No, I know that
Louis not seen it, so I'm just asking him because I want to see.
Not seen it. I don't know what their relationship were like.
Okay, well, are they in love? Are they boyfriend girlfriend? Do you think?
By the film's end, or throughout the majority of the film?
No, throughout the majority. In the beginning.
In the beginning, I would say. I'm just guessing here.
Yeah, no. Guess. Okay, no.
I would say no. I would say they're filling each other's needs, their needs, in their own way.
Okay,
Christian Grey wants what he wants, and she wants something more.
Yeah.
And hopes she could change the man she loves.
Okay, so exactly. Louis not seen it, but he's able to figure out the idea of the story, which is, in most cases, very similar, where someone loves somebody, but there's something about that person that needs to be changed. A very, very basic concept. So Christian Grey, in the beginning, says, I don't do romance. I don't do that lovey-dovey thing. I just want someone to be a submissive. And not to get too detailed, if you don't know what a submissive is, that is what he's looking for Anastasia Steele to be, a person that sexually gives themselves to another person to perform punishment and all this crazy things that happen in the book. As Christian Grey says in the movie, do your research. Beware, if you're under the age of 18, don't do your research. So I don't do romance. I never sleep in the same bed as somebody. I don't sleep with anyone, not meaning sexually, but meaning next to. I don't sleep with anyone. So we are built to kind of, and again, he doesn't touch her without a contract. That's what he says, and doesn't necessarily follow those rules. But here, so we have these rules that Christian Grey, we are beginning to believe that he is not a romantic. He does not want love. He wants her in a very sexual, sensual way. He cares about her, but he is not going to fall in love with her. He is not the guy who does romantic type things. So obviously our arc in the story, because we are smart enough to figure out how a story works, our arc is Anastasia changing Christian Grey. Now, whether that works or not, I don't know, because I've not seen the last two books. Or read the last two books, or read any books, but I don't know. But that's what our arc is. She wants to change him. He doesn't want to change. That's our conflict here. The very first night they go out, he takes her on a helicopter, and then he sleeps with her later that night. To me, that is detrimental to that character, because now the one thing he says he won't do, he does the very first night. So to me, you have totally discredited everything that man has said. He could be a romantic. He does sleep with women. He does wine and dine them and take them on helicopters. Not later in the movie, or like at a turning point in a film where you go, oh my God, he's changing, in the very beginning. Then you tell me it's because he makes her feel different. Okay, so I automatically already know in the first opening sex scene that he's going to change for her, or changing for her. So there's no arc. I mentioned last week in the SpongeBob movie, that a character named Plankton, who has one eye, and his mission in life is to steal a Krabby Patty recipe, doesn't understand teamwork. Throughout the film, we watch him interact with SpongeBob and see him learn what teamwork is. And can you guess what happens at the end of the film? He learns teamwork. Now, to most of you, that doesn't sound very intense or challenging at all. But see, regardless, there is an arc of Plankton. He understands, he learns, he goes through these conflicts that help him understand, he helps SpongeBob, boom. He understands teamwork and is able to pronounce the word eventually. This movie, rated R, for adults, mostly women, who are adult age, but for everyone who's an adult who could go see a rated R film, can't complete an arc correctly. To me, it ruined my investment in the story because I already know that he is not who he says he is. He's not a problem. There's no conflict because he's already changing. In that opening moment, he's already changing. And you can't tell me it's just a quick arc. No, because regardless if he eventually changes or not, I know he's capable of it. If you would have led me through that whole film thinking he's not going to ever do it, and then in the opening of the second film, he actually does, then you've interested me. Then you've intrigued me because, for a second, I believe that there's something going on there. But when you do it in the opening scene, you've totally made me believe, all right, this guy's full of crap. He just says that. He just says, quote unquote, it's who I am. Because it's not. Because obviously he wouldn't do that. That was my major issue with the film. To some, that might not completely make sense because in terms of watching a movie, you might not think that way. But to me, it made the movie completely, essentially uninvestable because now I know that he's not who he says he is, that he is already changing, and it just kind of really spoiled it for me. If that's how it works in the book or not, I don't know. But if it does, then I would say the book is the same way, where that just kind of totally ruins it for me. Now, this is one of 3 films, obviously, or if not 4, if they don't split the last one into 2. And this movie does end on a cliffhanger. There is no resolution in this movie. And I just think it's a complete... It let me not wanting to see any more films if I didn't have it.
It's kind of sad that everything has to be trilogies nowadays. Like, what happened to the good old days when you could just make one standalone feature film?
Marvel happened. That's what happened. No, and I wouldn't have minded a trilogy, but like I said, now I don't even feel the need to go through that whole entire that journey. In the movie Hunger Games, I've not read the books. I read 1 and half of 2, but I'm invested because I don't know who Katniss is going to choose at the end. I have a feeling, but I don't know because we constantly go back and forth. If we establish that in the first book, I don't care. So, Twilight.
Ooh.
She goes back and forth, I believe. I'm pretty sure she does. And Edward doesn't he backs off on her. So I'm just saying, two young adult novels were smarter formulaically, or smarter structurally than this film.
Now I don't know how important this is, again, because I did not read the book, seen the movie, but I think I've read this comment in passing that in the film, the movie takes place in Washington State, Seattle area, correct? Do you remember recalling that?
It takes place in Seattle in the movie.
Seattle. Twilight was set in Seattle area.
I believe.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know about
Washington State.
That's because they like the gloom and doom, man. You can't have a tragic love story in the sun.
Yes, you can.
Maybe, but I don't.
Why
think so.
not?
Whatever. You know,
Unless they're making a point on Seattle's, weather. It rains there all the time, so they have nothing better else to do.
or maybe they're making a point that there ain't no chance of love in Seattle.
Sleepless in Seattle.
Anyway, that's going to wrap it up. I went a lot longer than I should have anyway on that review of that film. I ended up giving the movie 1.5 stars out of 4. I thought the comedic qualities of it were really, really good. I actually really enjoyed Dakota Johnson. I totally bought the fact that she was the young, naive girl who didn't know anything about, the world that he takes her into. And she is really good at kind of standing her own against him and knowing things. I liked her. He was okay. Again, it's troubling for me to say he was super great because I already had issues with the character in the get-go. Not his fault, but I thought he was good too. Nothing too notable, though. So if you want to read my full review, because I even go in more detail than I did here, go to chasingcinema.com/50 Shades of Grey, and that's 50 spelled out, not 50. Moving on, Louis, let's get to our Oscar predictions. What is our first category?
Let's jump right into it and talk about a category that I think a lot of people take for granted or gets overlooked because, especially for, including ourselves, we don't spend too much time on this, and it's the best live action short. And the nominees are Boogaloo and Graham, Aya, Butterlamb, Paravina, and The Phone Call.
Now, there usually are 2 categories where me and Louis,
yes,
or maybe even more, where me and Louis have just not had the opportunity to see these films, to watch these movies, so it just kind of becomes a shot in the dark.
Yeah, I think last year we based on name titles, which one we liked the most.
Okay, so if you want to do that, which one are you looking at?
Basically, and I feel bad because obviously, it's nominated for a reason, and a lot of people put time and effort into this, and we kind of, lack of a better term, we're making a mockery of this picking it based on the title. But nonetheless, if I have to pick one film, I'm going to go with The Phone Call, just because it seems simple enough. Everyone can make a phone call, and it seems universal. I don't know what Butterlamp is, to be honest with you.
Because the name that appeals to me the most is actually Butterlamp.
Yeah, that figures.
Okay. So I promise most of these will be a lot more educated and more discussed.
Hopefully. Let's hope so. But for now, put it on the board.
All right, what's next?
And again, another category that we don't spend too much time on is Best Documentary Short. And the nominees are...
I got this for you.
Okay.
It is Crisis Hotline, Veterans Press 1, Joanna, Our Curse, The Reaper, or La Paca, and White Earth. There is no more, right?
That is it.
Okay. So, since we went first in last fashion, I'm going to take a leap and say the film that I'm going to choose is going to be Joanna.
Joanna. Very beautiful name. And I think I'm going to put my cards within Crisis Hotline.
Crisis Hotline.
That seems like an important topic. We're talking about veterans, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And I think it'd be apropos for them to win it.
All right. Well, those are 2 pretty much washes, depending on if we see those films or not. Highly doubtful, just because there's still stuff we need to see. But moving on to the more important categories, Louis, what else do we have?
Best Animated Short. And again, this is another category that you're more interested in most of the time.
And I at least seen one of them.
Oh, you have?
Yes, because most of the best animated shorts, at least one of them play in front of a major Disney film. In this case, Feast, by Patrick Osborne and Christina Reed. was actually placed in front of Big Hero 6, and that Feast will be my choice for Best Animated Short. I don't believe they usually win, but I think if I've seen at least one of them, that is the one I should technically vote for. So in my case, that is who I will be voting for, Feast.
Okay, the other nominees besides.
Oh,
Feast
sorry.
include-
Amongst them, The Bigger Picture, The Dam Keeper, Me and My Molten, in A Single Life.
See, it was funny because I was going to go with Feast too because I'm a food fanatic and Feast is always good in my book.
So go with Feast.
I am going with Feast.
Okay.
We have to agree on something.
Yes. I'm sure in a few categories we'll have something similar opinions. All right, next.
Now for Best Foreign Film, we have Ida, Wild Tales, Timbuktu, Tangerines, and Leviathan.
So this is a tough category because I've only seen one of the films on this list, which is Ida, and I talked about that with Josh Bell on our previous podcast. Louis, I don't believe you've seen any, or did you watch Ida?
I have not seen any.
Okay, so again, this is kind of shot in the dark. However, we do know that Leviathan has won a few Best Foreign Language Films of the year. So, Louis, which one will you be choosing?
Well, I think it was, the front two runners would be Ida because it's probably one of the most popular foreign films of this year.
Yes.
Even if you haven't seen it, you heard some press about it.
Yes.
And Latina, won the Golden Globe for Best Foreign Feature and other awards like you mentioned. So that's been the front runner in the sense. But you know what? I might go with the sentimental pick.
Okay.
And go with Ida just because that is Josh Bell's.
Josh Bell's choice.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with my boy Josh Bell.
I have to agree. It would have to be between those two films.
Yes.
I really enjoyed Ida, but because from what I hear, Leviathan is an incredibly powerful film and a movie that I think is has already won some awards. I think I'm going to have to go with that one to kind of shake things up, and I'm going to go with Leviathan.
Very nice. Okay, ready for the next category.
All right.
Next one is Best Documentary Feature.
Okay. Again, a category that I've only seen one of, I believe, of the categories. Louis, I believe you've seen none.
None. I'm keeping up.
Okay, and that is Citizen 4, Finding Vivian Mare, Last Days in Vietnam, The Salt of the Earth, and Virunga. Now, this year, I was pretty disappointed in the fact that The Life itself was not on this list. That would have been who I would have liked to see win. But it kind of seems to me, I've unfortunately not seen any of the competitors besides Citizen 4. However, that film was very powerful, and it was about Eric Snowden and a very, very thrilling movie that's not fictional. So I'm going to choose that film as who I think is going to win. I think it is one of the probably shoe-ins of the Academy Awards. Though categories like this, chances are you're going to hit a film that you've not been familiar with to take home the golden statue. But my choice is going to be Citizen 4.
And I would have to agree with you just based on the fact of Citizen 4 is one of those films like we mentioned earlier that's, even if you haven't seen it, you've heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably the most popular of the nominees in that category.
Moving on.
And again, this is right up your alley, and it's the best animated feature.
This one is going to be interesting. Louis, I think, have you seen any of these?
No, again, I have not seen it, so let me just get this out of the way. Of the nominees, it's How to Train Your Dragon 2, Song of the Sea, The Tale of the Princess Kaguya, Big Hero 6, and The Box Trolls. Now, I have not seen any of these films. I do want to see them, but my pick, just to get Jake a little upset, I'm going to go pick one of his favorite films of the year, How to Train Your Dragon 2.
I am also going to agree with Louis with How to Train Your Dragon 2. It was in my top 10 films of the year because of how much I loved it. I was not a fan of the Boxschultz, even though I would say Boxschultz is a competitor because it was stop motion, though I was not a fan of the film. Big Hero 6 was great, but I don't think it was nearly as impressive as How to Train Your Dragon was. Songs of the Sea and The Tale of Princess Kaguya I unfortunately have not seen. However, I know Japanese animation, as far as the Tale of the Princess Kaguya is, usually always a very great competitor and usually great films. Obviously, I don't know if the film is a Studio Ghibli movie, but I'm sure it will still be a competitor. Moving on.
Maybe you want to add something else. I gave you some time. Now into the more noted categories. Best visual effects. And to refresh your memory, the nominees are Guardians of the Galaxy, Interstellar, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, and X-Men Days of Future Past. And this is a pretty, I guess, close category because you have a variety of films that were all successful in their own right, and the Academy can pick their favorite in the sense they're backing. But I think the front runner and the obvious choice would have to be Interstellar.
All right, mark that. I'm keeping track. So everyone knows that I was not a big fan of Interstellar, but again, it's also a film that you cannot deny the power of visual effects and how special it did look. However, to me, I will say that it is, Captain America, I don't think would be a major choice because actually Captain America or X-Men would be a major choice because I thought they were both great, but nothing necessarily too invoking, and nothing that I would say really stuck out and stayed in my head that I was like, oh, you know what, guys, this is what's standing out this year. To me, it has to be between Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and Interstellar. Though Guardian of the Galaxy also had some pretty impressive effects, it has to be. I think personally, I would like to see Dawn of the Planet of the Apes win, but I think unfortunately, I'm going to have to say that Christopher Nolan's film Interstellar will take that award home.
And the Academy does like to honor Nolan's film in the past. Inception was a big winner before that, even though he hasn't got the best director nods or best picture nods that many of his fans would like. But technically speaking, his films usually do get honored. Moving on to the next category, be right into sound mixing. And the nominees for sound mixing are Whiplash, Interstellar, American Sniper, Birdman, Unbroken.
Now, sound mixing is one of those categories where a lot of people aren't necessarily super informed on or even necessarily know what that necessarily means. Interesting kind of category because, a lot of people's first thought was Interstellar. But to me, I thought the sound mixing and sound editing of that film was a problem. And I don't think I'm alone in thinking that, American Sniper, I don't think will do very well. Unbroken, I wouldn't say that's necessarily the front runner either. I think this is a category that's kind of all up in the air. But I'm going to take a kind of odd choice out, and I'm going to choose a film that also made my top 10. Actually, did make my top 5, and about musicians and about sound. And that's Whiplash.
Very nice. That's actually a good pick. Because of the nominees, usually this is the category that I think in the past, Lone Survivor won for best sound editing, sound mixing, stuff like that. So you got to take into account a wide variety of films that could be up for that. I think Unbroken did get unnoticed by Academy for the most part, and it hurts its chances of winning this category. It's tough because you would think the three top nominees would be Whiplash, Interstellar, or American Sniper. You went with Whiplash. Maybe there's a need for a new champion in this whole competition. So instead of going even Steven most of the way, you went with Whiplash. I'm going to go with Interstellar again.
Okay.
But I would not be surprised if American Sniper wins this award.
Yeah, or, I mean, the thing is, that's one of those categories that could easily just kind of go out of the way that we had originally planned. But, again, it's something we'll just have to kind of see. But it is interesting because you and I have not been agreeing so much thus far. Is sound editing next?
Yes.
So achievements in sound editing, which is a little bit different, has a very similar category, except the transformation of Whiplash into The Hobbit. So we have American Sniper, Birdman, The Hobbit of the Battle of Five Armies, Interstellar, and Unbroken. And in this one, because I think the issues with sound mixing is an issue, it's hard for me to kind of believe that Interstellar will take it. But I'm going to guess that Interstellar is going to take home at least one of these awards. So because I think the mixing wasn't necessarily I chose Whiplash, obviously. I think I'm going to go with Interstellar on this one, just to kind of go by odds in this category. Personally, I think it's a situation where I don't really know who is more popular in this, but I'm going to assume Interstellar is kind of the front runner, so I'm going to choose that one in this case.
Makes sense, and again, to be different out there, you pick Interstellar, which is always a good guess. I'm just going to go with American Sniper on this one.
Okay.
Because I think usually it's one of those films like this or Lone Survivor where they do get nominated for a category like this.
Absolutely. What is next?
Best Song.
Okay, Best Song. Hit me with those categories while I look for it on my list.
And they are Glory, Selma, Lost Stars, Begin Again, I'm Not Gonna Miss You, Glenn Campbell, Be Me, Everything Is Awesome, the Lego Movie, and Grateful, Beyond the Lights.
So, as much as I absolutely loved Everything Is Awesome from the Lego Movie, I think that I'm going to have to go with, past what's been winning right as of late, and the fact that I really did enjoy this film, and that is Glory from Selma.
And enough of the differences. I can't disagree with you on this one. I think this is Glory's Oscar to lose.
Oscar to win?
Well, if they lose, it's.
Okay. It was theirs.
It's theirs,
Okay, moving on.
Moving on. Best Score.
A very, very important category, and I think a very, very intense category. Louis, why don't you read the nominees for us?
The best scores include Mr. Turner, The Imitation Game, Interstellar, The Grand Budapest Hotel, and The Theory of Everything.
A very, very interesting, arguable category. Louis, do you have a choice? I think I went first last time, so...
Yeah, just to keep it with what's been going on trending-wise, I think The Theory of Everything is going to take this one home.
I'm actually going to agree with you on that. We talked about that when we were trying to pronounce that gentleman's name.
Yes.
At one point, but I also agree that Theory of Everything will be taking that award home. So it could easily go to Unbroken. Or no, not Unbroken, I'm sorry, The Imitation Game or Interstellar.
Mm-hmm.
Grand Budapest Hotel I've still not have seen. I've seen parts, but I still need to sit home and watch that entire film. And I actually, unfortunately, missed Mr. Turner. So, and I know that is a big, big talk about best cinematography, but we'll get to that when we get there. Moving on, Louis.
Best Production Design.
Okay.
And the nominees, Interstellar, The Imitation Game, Mr. Turner, Into the Woods, and The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Go on, Louis, because I'm still looking.
Okay, that's fine. Keep looking. Again, this is another one that always gets odd winners here and there. I think at one point, Johnny Depp's Alice in Wonderland won for Best Production Design. but I don't think Into the Woods is going to take it. In fact, just from looking at the trailers and seeing the still photos, it looked very vivid, and the Academy tends to like Wes Anderson somewhat. So I think the Grand Budapest Hotel is going to win this award. Plus, they are nominated like 10 times or so they have to win something.
I think that is a good choice. I would say if it's between anything, I would be between the Grand Budapest Hotel and Into the Woods. So I'm going to take the not the dark horse. I'm going to go on the favorite route and choose Into the Woods.
All right. Ooh, Into the Woods.
Into the Woods. Even though I was really not a fan of that film, I still think it did look pretty awesome.
And so moving on to the next category, this is very interesting. It's Best Makeup and Hairstyling, and there's only 3 nominees, and they are
Only 3.
only 3: Foxcatcher, The Grand Budapest Hotel, and Guardians of the Galaxy. How crazy is that?
It's a very interesting choice. 3 different, very, very, very different movies. Personally, I don't think that there's going to be much of a race, though I've been wrong in my day once or twice in my life. But I'm going to go with Foxcatcher because I think that everyone this year was staring at Steve Carell and his transformation into John DuPont. John DuPont.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting, Jake. I was not expecting that, even though Steve Carell did have an amazing prosthetic nose that should be recognized by some academy. But I don't know. This is a tough category because who knows? It could go anyway. But I think sticking on...
Do you think Guardians of the Galaxy actually has a shot, or are you saying just between the Grand Budapest Hotel and Foxcatcher?
No, I honestly think Guardians of the Galaxy, they do have a shot because I think they have a strong backing. And a lot of people do like Marvel films. It's been nominated before, and a lot of people did like Guardians of the Galaxy a lot more than we did personally.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that makes it a wild card threat. But as much as I don't like his films, I think I have to give it to Wes Anderson, Grand Budapest Hotel.
Okay.
Moving on to the next best category nominee, Best Editing.
Best Editing, which I know always has had some sort of correlation with, Best Picture, but I don't think in the last couple of years, right, Louis?
Yeah, there's been a lot of, not many matchups with editing and Best Picture. But in years past, usually whoever wins Best Editing, the Pixar would go on to win Best Picture.
Well, I'm not trying to give away any hints of saying that's who I think is going to win Best Picture, but what I will say is when you have about 12 years of footage, editing, that down to a 3-hour film, to me, honestly deserves that award over anything else. So my choice is going to be Boyhood.
And the nominees of Boyhood, Grand Budapest Hotel, Whiplash, American Sniper, and The Imitation Game. And if you are one to believe in the connection between Best Editing and Best Picture, if you are astute, you would notice that Birdman is not included in the nominees for Best Editing. Could that be a sign? Who knows? But I do agree with Jacob. Boyhood should take home Best Editing.
I think Birdman is that kind. Well, we'll talk about that when we get there.
Okay.
What's next?
Best Costume Design.
Best Costume Design.
Yes, and the nominees are The Grand Budapest Hotel, Into the Woods, Maleficent, Mr. Turner, and Inherent Vice.
Inherent Vice.
Yes.
Is this the only
finally?
Is
I
the
think
only
so.
Category that Inherent Vice was nominated for?
It might have been, which is so sad.
Damn shame. Maleficent ended up getting an award, which is good. I'm very proud of that movie to actually get an Academy Award. It wasn't a terrible movie. I didn't love it, but it was a movie that had a pretty big following. God, this is a tough one. It's very okay. Go on.
Let me just go on and say, you know what? I think the trend of my picks have been, let's just give it to him. I don't like him, but oh well, I have to watch this film eventually, so hopefully it would win some awards. I'm going to go out on a limb and pick the Grand Budapest Hotel once again,
All right.
just
So
for the heck of it.
since Louis is going for the heck of it of going, I'm going to stick to my pattern and also stick with Into the Woods.
Yes, I love it.
So hopefully you win one and I win another. But moving on, what is next?
The next category is Best Cinematography.
Very tough category.
And the film that are honored by this category
Is
are Birdman.
oh, sorry, go on.
No, you can go.
Birdman, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Ida, Mr. Turner, and Unbroken. So, damn. Birdman has gotten a lot of praise for its cinematography. Ida, I thought, was so beautifully shot. If you go back to my podcast, I talk about the use of black and white and how amazing it was used to actually tell a story, how rare black and white is used properly. But Mr. Turner has also gotten a lot of praise for its cinematography, and unfortunately, that was a film that I missed, and I believe Louis missed also. Mm-hmm. So I, by default, am going to have to go with Birdman for this category, I think. Though there is something in me kind of saying Mr. Turner might be the way to go, I'm going to have to stick with what I know and stick with Birdman.
You know, I definitely agree. I think this is Birdman's year. I think, especially for the mass public, when you talk about cinematography, it might get overlooked by the general audience. But when a film like Birdman comes, and even the general public talk about the continuous shot, the cinematography in the film, I think that's something the Oscars definitely will recognize.
Agreed. But Mr. Turner, like I said, is that wild card. So let's keep an eye out for that. What is next, Louis?
The Best Adapted Screenplay.
Interesting, because let me see if that's all on here. Because one of the films that I absolutely loved was adapted, even though it technically kind of wasn't adapted.
Yeah.
I believe we talked about it briefly. Whiplash was a short film in order to be financed,
yes,
and then was created into a feature-length film, which not forced it, but put it into the adapted screenplay category. Those nominees are American Sniper, The Imitation Game, Inherent Vice, This Theory of Everything, and Whiplash. Jeez, this is a tough category. Louis, your thoughts?
Oh, Inherent Vice. No. Which would be great. I love Inherent Vice's screenplay. I'm happy that got nominated. But for adapted screenplay, especially we just had the WGA recently, Writers Guild Awards, and usually they're pretty accurate in, seeing what the Academy likes. But I definitely have to go with The Imitation Game.
I would argue that The Imitation Game is probably equally matched by The Theory of Everything. I think this is one of the categories that I didn't expect to have so much trouble with picking, but I did. But I'm going to have to agree with Louis and probably ride his opinion. I actually did not know that it won the writing guild. I was not. I did not. I believe actually Louis mentioned it to me, but everyone knows how great my memory is. So I'm going to also agree with him on The Imitation Game.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet.
Imitation Game, easily great film.
Yeah, it's a great film in itself, so you can't argue with that.
And I hope I hope it's not the only award that it goes home with, because it is deserving of multiple. But I just think it's a really tough year for everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess next is the original screenplay.
You got that right.
Excuse me. We have Birdman, Boyhood, Foxcatcher, Nightcrawler, my number one, my number one, my number one problem of going into this, these nominations is that sometimes some of your more popular movies don't make their way in, or
yes,
sometimes some of the movies that you enjoy more don't make it in. And, I was bummed to see that Nightcrawler didn't earn more awards, because it was a film that I really enjoyed. But at the same time, it is a tough year. Like I just said, the problem is this year is that there were so many great films that are deserving of all of these categories. They just so happen to be amongst each other. And if you would have put in not Grand Budapest, but The Imitation Game in a category maybe 2 years ago, it probably, 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, I don't remember, and I'm not saying it's better than the other films, but you separate these are major contenders. But for original screenplay, I mean, this is also another one that's going to just be, I mean, I really love Nightcrawler. I really, really love that movie. So if that movie won, I wouldn't be too happy. So I'll choose that as my what I would like to see win. But I'm going to stick with the more popular choice in a film that I know is incredibly powerful and moving to me, though Louis did not necessarily feel the same, and that is Boyhood.
Wow. I too would love to see Nightcrawler win because we were both big fans of that film. And this is like the only nomination it got, practically. So, it would be kind of cool to win 1-for-1.
Yes.
But I don't think that's very likely to happen. This is interesting because I know you do like Boyhood a lot. And a lot of people do like Boyhood a lot. I'm not one of them. So I don't think I gave it editing. I'm not going to give it best original screenplay because I don't think the screenplay was that to marvel at. But I think there's a
obviously numerous amount of people thought it was good enough to marvel at.
I disagree. I think it is. We need a filler. Let's put that in. I think Birdman would be a great choice because that was definitely an original feature. You could feel you don't see that film every day. But I said,
Jesus, I already marked it down.
No, don't mark it down. I think there's a theme going on, Jake, and Jesus. I think the theme is it's Wes Anderson's night some way or some other way. And if they're going to get shut out in the makeup and production design, I think just like how Spike Jonze won Best Original Screenplay for Her, it's Wes Anderson winning Best Original Screenplay for Grand Budapest Hotel.
Put it on the books. All right.
Put it on the board.
We got about 5-10 more minutes to wrap it up. We have some major categories to go through now. That leaves us with, you want to do supporting first? Or do you want? Okay.
Let's do supporting actress.
Do I have supporting on my list? I don't see it. Go on.
Okay. Nominees for Best Supporting Actress is Patricia Arquette.
Oh, there we go.
Boyhood. Emma Stone, Birdman. Laura Dern, Wild. Keira Knightley, The Imitation Game. And Meryl Streep, Into the Woods.
We talked about this actually on a few podcasts. Mm-hmm. One particularly with Josh Bell and Michael Smith in December. That I think that Patricia Arquette was really awesome in her role. She also did an incredible interview with Elvis Mitchell on The Treatment, and I think that she's very powerful in that movie. Again, I know that Louis, I think, was a little bit underwhelmed with her performance. I thought Laura Dern was great, and I'm glad she got nominated. I don't think she was necessarily a great performance. I like Keira Knightley, and Emma Stone I would think is the biggest opponent for her. So Louis, am I missing someone? Oh, Meryl Streep. I'm not missing anyone. Granted, I love that woman, and I've mentioned it a lot of times on the podcast, but to nominate her for Into the Woods, I just don't comprehend it. Yeah. Louis, who do you think is going to win the Supporting Actress award?
I thought Patricia Arquette did a good job in Boyhood. I had good
job.
I had more problems with her character, and I did like Ethan Hawke's performance more. So that's why I wasn't crazy about her performance particularly. But I think this is her award this year. I think she's going to take home the Best Supporting Actress Oscar, even though I would love to see Emma Stone take it home. But I think it's Arquette's
year. Best Supporting Actor.
You agree, right? Obviously.
What?
With Arquette.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Best Supporting Actor. Robert Duvall in The Judge, which, again, is a shocking nomination to me.
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke in Boyhood, Edward Norton in Birdman, Mark Ruffalo in Foxcatcher, and J.K. Simmons in Whiplash. I'm going to go ahead and guess that Louis and I are not arguing this category. I think everyone in the world this is probably the biggest for sure of the year.
Yep.
Which also makes it kind of nerve-wracking because they're like, oh, damn. But if this award doesn't go to the man that I believe deserves it, I will be very, very upset. And because it goes to very much deserving J.K. Simmons in Whiplash. Louis, do you concur?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. Good, because I'd be upset. That must be kind of hard for you, though, because I know you are a huge Edward Norton fan, and I know you really liked his performance in Birdman.
Yeah, he was great in Birdman, but I think It's just Whiplash will be remembered more for J.K. Simmons than Edward Norton will be for Birdman.
Okay, so now we have Best Director, Achievement in Directing. We have Birdman, Boyhood, Foxcatcher, The Grand Budapest Hotel, or The Imitation Game. A very, very tough category. I think it is one that is up in the air. It is a shame that Selma, Ava DuVernay was not mentioned in this list. Very heartbreaking to me, but, unfortunately, it's just a really, really tough year. So, Louis, who do you think is going to be walking home with Best Director at the Academy Awards this year?
I think it's a two-man race at this point. I think it's either between Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu for Birdman
or Richard Linklater.
Yes, I think it's either those two. I could see both. Both scenarios. I could see either of them walking away with the Oscar. But there's something. It's tough because personally, I would choose Inarritu. I would like to see him win. Just because I thought what he did with Birdman was amazing. But I think the whole 12-year journey and this filming someone growing up on film is something the Academy will definitely honor. So, I think right now I'm going to have to stick with Linklater.
I'm also going to agree with that. I think if anyone really deserves, not saying that Inarritu or any of these directors don't deserve, because Bennett Miller directed an incredibly sharp, calm thriller. Wes Anderson, again, I've not fully seen. And Morton Taldum in The Imitation Game was also a very, very powerful directing job, though I did think that movie had a few issues. But I'm going to agree with Louis on Boyhood. And though Birdman is also a very, very huge wild card in that category, where it might even be as narrow as flipping a coin. Now we're going to move on to the toughest, one of the toughest categories, I believe. Actually, we'll save that one. So we'll do Best Performance by an Actress in a Leading Role. Louis, who are the nominees?
The Best Actress nominees are Reese Witherspoon, Wild; Julianne Moore, Still Alice; Marion Cotillard, 2 Days, One Night; Felicity Jones, The Theory of Everything; and Rosamund Pike, Gone Girl. Now, I would say this is pretty clear-cut for me. I think as much as J.K. Simmons is going to win Best Supporting Actor, I think Julianne Moore is going to take home Best Actress.
This category is really hard for me because I believe Louis is right. I believe the whole world is similar to J.K. Simmons is on board for Julianne Moore getting an Oscar, even though in my heart I think that Felicity Jones is such an amazing, gives such an amazing in The Theory of Everything, and she's really deserving of it. So this one was really tough, but I think I'm not. You okay there?
Yeah, almost dying.
I think I'm going to have to agree with Louis and go with Julianne Moore, even though I would love to see Felicity Jones take it. So if I do miss this point, I'll be happy because the actress took that home. So moving on to what I was saying, which is probably the toughest category at the Academy Awards this year. We have Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role, and that is Steve Carell in Foxcatcher, Bradley Cooper in American Sniper, Benedict Cumberbatch in The Imitation Game, Michael Keaton in Birdman, or Eddie Redmayne in The Theory of Everything. As much as the world has kind of been chatting along that Michael Keaton it's going to be his year, and because I think everyone agrees that it's between Michael Keaton or Eddie Redmayne, The Theory of Everything hit me 10 times harder. I thought his performance was so beautiful. I'm going to go with the man that played Stephen Hawking, Eddie Redmayne, to win Best Actor in a Leading Role.
I think at the beginning of award season, many people had Michael Keaton as the front runner. And rightfully so. But since then, Eddie Redmayne has appeared as the heavy hitter for this category, and I do think he will take home the Best Actor as well.
All right, and Louis, I'm going to give you the esteemed role in reading the Best Motion Picture of the Year.
I don't want it. Okay. The Best Picture nominees include, mind you, there's only 8.
Not 10, 8.
Not 10, 8. And they are Birdman, Boyhood, The Grand Budapest Hotel, The Imitation Game, American Sniper, The Theory of Everything, Whiplash, and Selma. And like many categories in years past and this year, I think it's come down to two films, and they are Boyhood and Birdman. I think those are the easily two films that could win this year. But as much as to my dismay, I think Boyhood is going to take home Best Picture.
There's some really great things about this category. The fact that Selma was nominated, I think, is awesome because I really love that film, and it was kind of snubbed. I wouldn't say, well, it's somewhat snubbed if you look at the list of the awards it was nominated for. The Grand Budapest Hotel is a shocking, to me, was a shocking addition to the nomination list, and also I think is a dark horse in this category. Whiplash, I was very, very proud to see nominated, but I'm going to have to, not unfortunately, but fortunately, agree with my my best friend / co-host Louis in saying that I believe Boyhood will take Best Picture home. If not, I would not be shocked if Birdman came out of nowhere and took that category home. We do not know. You never know. That's the kind of the interesting things about the Academy Awards. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our Oscar predictions, which will be taking place next week, February 22nd at 4 p.m. Make sure to tune in at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Louis and I will be covering it, live tweeting, so make sure to tune in for that as we tweet about all the fun stuff. Next week, we will be reviewing two films, though not on the podcast because we'll be talking about the Oscars. We might briefly talk about Hot Tub Time Machine 2. And McFarland USA. But that's going to wrap it up for this week. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the podcast. Again, make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes to make sure that this podcast is delivered to your iTunes each week for free without you having to even do anything. Or make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/chasingcinema, where you can listen to all of our podcasts and watch our video reviews. And of course, make sure to sign up to chasingcinema.com. As always, I am your host, Jacob Toronto, joined by my loyal, faithful co-host / best friend,
Louis Carzolo.
And please continue chasing cinema.